Right. So we're going to switch the conversation to housing, and we have Ms. Seila and Mr. Brandon. And as I said, Ms. Seila Mosquera Bruno is
Seila is fine. Seila. Call
Ms.
me
Seila.
Seila.
Okay,
Yes.
she's our housing commissioner for the state of Connecticut, and Brandon McGee, as you know, is our state rep, and he also serves on the housing committee, so they are a wealth of knowledge. I have some questions that have been provided to me, and they're broken up as far as tenants, landlords, and then desegregation. So in regards to tenants, can you tell us where tenants can apply for rental assistance program in our community, and whatever information you can share regarding eviction or lack of eviction, and when those laws or requirements that were put into place will change?
Sure. Good. First of all, good evening, and thank you for inviting me to your forum. It's a pleasure to be here. On the rental assistance program, I'm gonna, first of all, I'll clarify. Rental assistance programs that the state runs, they're not open at this point. But the rental assistance, the temporary rental assistance program that the state is running right now for those that have suffered some type of hardship, layoff, furlough from their employment, we are running that. And that can be accessed through a call center, and the number is 1-860-785-3111, Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And the rental assistance is a tenant have to apply, and they have to provide some information, complete an application. If they qualify for the assistance, then the landlord will receive the payments. So it's basically a help for both, for the tenant and for the landlord.
Hey.
So you guys can also access detailed information on our website at the Department of Housing. And if anybody has any questions, whether our social agencies or advocates, you guys can visit our website or send emails or questions to, I will read the address, which is trhap.info@ct.gov.
Can you repeat that again, please?
trhap.info@ct.gov.
Commissioner, could you just explain a little bit more in detail the differences between resources for our homeowners and resources that are available for tenants? I know that there are like 3 bullets that explain all of this on the purple flyer that we've been sharing around. And I know you have Aaron on the call as well. So Aaron, maybe if we could forward that information over to Violet or Miss Beverly Red, that might be helpful as well.
Sure. Yes, Aaron can send the information, but I will just briefly going over the rental assistance is up to $4,000 for a family or individuals that are, as I said, have been affected by COVID-19. The first tier is for those households with minors and that unemployment benefits has been denied. And we are taking applications. It will be from July 15 for 2 weeks. Those individuals or households will have a priority. And then the second phase will be for those individuals that are up to 80% of their area median income and have been denied employment, they don't need to have a minor in their house. And the third tier will be individuals, anybody who has been affected and needs some assistance. So that's the rental assistance. And then we have the homeownership assistance for those in the families that have lost their jobs and they need some help with the mortgages. Connecticut Housing Finance Authority is managing the program and is up to $25,000 for a family to help with the mortgages. That is not a subsidy, that is a second mortgage, but they don't have to pay it until the family will be back in their feet with the income that they need in order to pay the second mortgage.
Commissioner, what's usually, what's been a typical turnaround for tenants who rent? What's been a typical turnaround in terms of receiving the funding?
So we just started July 15. So as you know, we have more than 15,000 calls. We have a threshold questionnaire, and about 1,400 has filled out that questionnaire. So now we're gonna put them into categories, tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. Nobody's been denied, but we're gonna have priorities. It will take, once they complete the application and submit all the documentation, we're trying to respond as soon as possible, but at least within 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
You have one other question there. Is there an income requirement for tenants?
Yes, it's up to 60%. The first tier is families with minor and up to 60% of the area median income. The second tier will be up to 80%.
And Councilman Shirley Surgeon also asked what sort of documentation might be needed when applying or going through eligibility.
Once they pass the threshold, on the threshold criteria, there will be some questions that they have to answer. Once they submit the application, there will be some documentation like the tax return or a pay stub from their unemployment benefits for those that have gotten. This is for the second tier. But there is a checklist that they will be given to provide with the application.
Okay. There's a stay on foreclosures at the moment. Can you talk to us if you think that's going to continue and how long you think that might be?
What was the question again,
There's a stay on foreclosures at the moment and also on evictions. But those stays are going to run out. Is there any plans, or can you just talk to us about when the stays run out? What are the plans for the people that might be directly impacted, or just give us some highlights about it?
Yeah, the moratorium has been postponed until August 22nd. The governor signed an executive order 7DDD, and but the judge, the chief judge has postponed any procedures until September 2nd. So September 2nd is the sooner that somebody can file for eviction.
So Commissioner, just to add a little color to this, there are a lot of threats to tenants, especially in the city of Hartford, to tenants who are unable to pay their rent. And while many people know that the moratorium is live and effective, landlords are still threatening tenants about an eviction that, quite frankly, won't ever happen until September, essentially.
Yeah. So for questions on tenant rights, if there are people that need some help and some assistance, they should contact a statewide legal service, Connecticut. And I can give you a number, the 800 number, if you want to have that number so that people, if they need it, is 1-800-453-3320. And that's for anybody that has issues with a landlord and disputes, and they think that it is not fair what the landlord is trying to do, so they can call the statewide legal services.
And I think the other piece for the homeowners, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, there are only a number of banks that the state has jurisdiction over, if you would. So state banks, I guess that's how we should describe it. And then there are other mortgage lenders that we have no autonomy over. For example, Wells Fargo and Bank of America, et cetera. I know the governor and you were working with many of the banks to provide some relief to our homeowners, whether it's putting payments on the back of their loan, or just saying, hey, you don't have to pay us for the next 5 months. I don't know what other efforts might be in place that you, Commissioner, and the governor have been working on, but I know that there were some efforts there. So
actually, for those, there are mortgages that are insured by the federal government, and there are other small financing companies that are not. And those are usually the ones that homeowners cannot refinance because they don't have that same flexibility. The mortgage, the second mortgage that the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority is offering is for all the families that cannot access. Actually, if you have a mortgage that is insured by the federal government, you don't qualify for the $25,000. This is to help those families and individuals. The whole mortgages and the mortgage company is not helping them to refinance or to giving them some moratorium or deferment.
Thank you.
And that number that I gave the first time, I can give it to you again. That's the same number that a homeowner can also call for their mortgages. And that is the 1-860-785-3111. If you are a homeowner that also rent an apartment, you can qualify for this type of help for the mortgage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions specific for tenants or landlords or homeowners before we move into desegregation?
Yes, Councilwoman Surgeon asks, with the rental assistance program monies, how many people do we estimate being helped within this particular fund? So Commissioner, if you can break down the buckets of funding that we have through the CARES funds, that might be helpful.
Yeah, so we have a little over $30 million in different buckets. We have $10 million for the rental assistance. We have $10 million for the homeowners assistance. We have $4 million for rental subsidy, really targeted to the homeless population. And we have another $5 million for eviction prevention.
Shirley, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it does. Because if you only have $10 million for the assistant rental program and you have 3 tiers, and there's just going to be such a large amount of people that is going to be in need. I'm trying to estimate 1,000, 1,500, 3,000 people. It's going to be a first come, first serve basis. And then also to Representative McGee, are we going to be able to supplement that program either federally or state? Because that's something that's going to be running out very quickly.
So the assistance, what we're going to be doing is basically monitoring and giving feedback to the administration, to the OPM and the governors. They are very aware that we might need to do a little more, but we also needed to get a program out and deploy resources. And so right now, we the call center the first day was a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of calls, and this is new. The program, we're trying to be as flexible as we can to move the money as quick as we can, but because it's also federal money, we do have to provide information and records because it's a reimbursement basis. So we want to make sure that we cover every single detail on that. And I think my staff has been doing a tremendous job in trying to be as flexible, as I said before, as they can in order to move this along. I mean, they're working as we speak because we are going to supplement the call center with a intake over the internet. So we are working on having an online assistance so that people can do that in addition to calling the number that I already gave you.
Okay, thank you. So there's no local agency in each of the urban areas someone could call or go to, like CRT or any other smaller, organization?
So we have 11 organizations, but this is what we're trying to accomplish is we have 11 organizations that are housing counseling in different cities. However, we want to do the call center. The call center will do the threshold criteria, the questionnaire, and once they pass that first step, then we'll send it to the housing counseling agencies. So we're trying for the housing agencies not to be overwhelmed with the amount of calls, but they just processing people that has been already pre-qualified from the call center.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure, this might be for Brandon since it's a question regarding Hartford. I've been attending a lot of the NRZ meetings, and when builders come in, they always say that 80% of what they build is going to be at market value and 20% is going to be at affordable. Can you tell me what a one-bedroom market value rate is compared to a one-bedroom affordable rent rate?
Absolutely. First and foremost, though, I want to say a huge thank you to our commissioner, who has just been stellar in terms of her outreach as a commissioner, and really willing to be a part of the community and sharing information. So, Commissioner, thank you for coming out. I know that there was a previous commissioner, and I won't state any names, but would not have come on at 8 o'clock in the evening to meet with a group of stakeholders to discuss housing. That said, I think the commissioner probably could answer this question better than I, as she comes from the world of development and really understand this thing with her eyes closed. So, Commissioner, if you want to give an example of those two, and then I can segue to desegregate.
I'll give you an average because I don't have in front of me, and it gets a little complicated. But let's say that a one bedroom is $1,300. I just saw those numbers in another for a project. And affordable will be depends on income. Is about 30% of somebody's gross income, right? So if somebody is making $25,000, so the 30% for that affordable unit, it depends whether you are at 50% of the area median income, at 60% of the area median income, 25,000, 30,000. So it's around $700, $800 in affordable, because then you calculate utility allowances if the tenant is going to pay utility allowance, the difference. You go between $700, $800 to $1,300, $1,400 for a one bedroom. And also depends of the area where that particular, we're talking about Hartford. And I haven't done all the numbers in Hartford, but those are more or less what the rents are.
So I guess my question is that like legal redlining? You know, if 80% of the housing being built is going to be rented for market value, and most of them being built are one bedrooms. And I don't know what the population is going to be in 10 years, but if it's a one bedroom and you're a young single person and you want to live downtown, or, when you have a family, you probably want a larger place and want to live someplace else. So are we thinking long-term? Because it seems as though this is the only financing the builders are saying that they can get, as if it's at this ratio.
Well, that's probably for, if you're talking about downtown Hartford, that's not a ratio. Actually, what we are doing at the department is that we incentivize to do more affordable and less market. So 20% market. So for us, all the developments that we're supporting is actually 80% affordable and 20% market rate, if you will, just to have some diversity and some mixed income in a development.
Okay, so I don't know what's going on with Bowles Park or Westbrook Village. So is that the criteria for that new housing stock?
For Westbrook Village, is actually, they have 80% affordable and 20%. Yeah, Westbrook Village. I know that development.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the notes that were sent to me. What are the benefits or disadvantages of desegregation of urban areas?
Yeah, I'll respond to that, and I know that there's a group called Desegregate CT, and I've been somewhat reluctant to join in on those efforts, and I've been very clear with its organizer that while I agree with a lot of the recommendations that are outlined in Desegregate CT, I hesitate because, quite frankly, I don't see many of your faces of color, number one, around the table. And number two, anytime we talk about desegregation, it's always through the lenses of white people. And for me, I am more interested in understanding from a long-term resident, for example, one who has lived in a certain section of the city, north end of Hartford, for example, and they're never a part of any particular development. In fact, they watch development happen around them, but there's nothing being done in their community proper, all right? For example, many of our Hartford residents are being told, how about you just move out of Hartford and you go elsewhere so that you could have greater opportunity, whether it be education or housing. Again, I'm of the mindset that, why don't we invest in the very community where folks are residing right now, create better opportunities for them there, and then we can talk about how to address desegregating Avon and Canton and all these other places. Do I think that's important? I really do. Connecticut is the most segregated state in the country, but you cannot have a conversation with a legislator from Hartford with respect to desegregating Connecticut. Oh, and by the way, the chair of the housing committee, desegregate CT, and not talk about many of our urban centers throughout this state. So desegregation is real. It's important. There are benefits, but there's also the potential to re-gentrify communities that have already been gentrified. And we're making pathways very readily available for folks from New York and others to come in and buy these properties in our communities and benefit on the backs of many of the working poor or middle class. So I know I said a lot, but if you didn't get anything from my talk, it would be we have to focus on the communities that have been overlooked and under-resourced before you have a conversation with me about desegregating Connecticut.
Okay. I'm trying. Do you mind if we just go another 5 minutes? Because I want to be respectful of your time.
Sure.
Okay. Um, we have a lot of land trust things going on, and in Hartford, they made a presentation. And so my question was, are there particular neighborhoods that you are getting the houses, picking up the properties? And I guess the land trust is this organization. I'm not sure if they're city-owned, but this organization that is buying city-owned properties or abandoned properties within the city. And their response was they're picking up most of the properties from the northeast and Clay Arsenal neighborhoods. Have, any thoughts on that, since I guess, you probably know better than I what they're going to do with these properties when they acquire them and fix them up and resell them. Any thoughts on that, since it seems to be our communities in the north end of Hartford that they are, buying?
Yeah, Violet, it's a great question. And land trust on the surface are great concepts that offer developers, community folk, business owners an opportunity to reinvest in communities like, for example, North Hartford. Unfortunately, when you have, though, a city, and then you have now what is a quasi organization that was once a part of the city of Hartford. You all know a young lady by the name of Laura Sattermeyer. She would go around to the different communities and meet with folk. She's now in charge of this new land bank, this new land trust organization that is doing exactly what you just described, Violet. I think it's a great idea, but I'm always of concern when I don't see folks like the Violets and the Miss Beverly and Arrows and folks, a part of this group, not on a particular committee or are not at the center of what's happening. Unfortunately, the city of Hartford North End, we lack a community development corporation that's sort of the eyes and ears on all development in the city. And then also, we have our NRZs. I'm a part of Northeast NRZ. I respect our NRZs, but oftentimes our NRZs don't have sort of those professionals, if you would, who understand the details around development, planning, etc. And sometimes the city uses our NRZs as a little box, check it off, I met with them, and they kind of just do whatever they want. And so I'm a little hesitant about the land trust or the land bank, but we have Councilman Surgeon and others who are keeping the eyes and ears on these folks. But we are a target. I'm not going to lie. Northeast Hartford Clay Arsenal is a target. It's a target, and it's very uncomfortable. And I just appreciate these spaces because you all are doing the right thing, and that's asking the right questions. But I also think we need to bring in Laura. We need to bring in Charles Matthews, and we need to bring in the mayor who could really help us to understand what's his thinking on redevelopment in places like Clay Arsenal, Blue Hills, in the northeast section of our city.
Brandon, let me also follow up by saying that at, I believe in September, we are going to be scheduling Laura to come to the Planning, Economic Development Committee.
Okay.
And if we're not back in City Hall, we'll certainly be broadcasting it, where she's going to come and tell us all about the land bank, what they're doing, what their plans are, what their goals are. So I will pass that information on when we have the committee meeting, so people on this call can join us, and ask some questions, just exactly as you're saying. I don't know a lot about the land bank. The ordinance and the state legislation was passed a couple of years ago in the city. One of the things about the land bank, which I was very interested in learning more about, is who we're appointing. to this board and commission. They are quasi public agencies, so they're kind of not on the city payroll or part of the city. They're quasi city agency. So the council doesn't really have any kind of oversight on it. So those are questions which I will have for Laura in September when we invite her to come to the committee meeting to give us more information, what they're doing on their goals.
And I would add also, and thanks for sharing that and keep me posted on the date.
Sure.
Before Laura left the city to run this now land bank or whatever the official name is, the city awarded, or not the city, the state awarded the city somewhere upwards of $5 million to establish this land bank. And I want to say, Commissioner, it was through Department of Housing, I think. I could be wrong. I only share this with you, and I'm glad it's being recorded. You all should be asking for some of those dollars to rehab houses, rehab properties, because that was a part of sort of the blight and land trust efforts when this was a part of the city of Hartford. So there are definitely dollars, or there were dollars allocated. I do not know how the money was spent, but it might be worth asking Laura, perhaps even the mayor or whoever else, where have those dollars been allocated?
So the Department of Housing is in charge of the funding, and the department has advanced $500,000 and is in the process of release the other $4.5 million.
Oh, so that's good to know. Money hasn't been spent.
So no, it hasn't. We were looking at policies and procedures, and as you said, they do have a plan, and they have to provide information and how they're going to utilize the resources, and then they need to send us a report, because I do have to go to the legislation and report back.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So some of the plan is to buy blighted properties, is to do redevelopment, and is to work with people from the neighborhoods if they want to redevelop property. So it is up to you guys to ask for that information and to be part of it. But we still have the money, so we're in the process of releasing within the next month or so.
Okay, so we can go to Laura and we can say we have these 13 organizations that are in Hartford that serve the community, and we would like some funding to do some redevelopment on our properties.
Well, let me say this. Aaron is on the call. Aaron, if it's possible, could you just email me the criteria, and then maybe we could send that over to Violet and Beverly, and they could share that with the coalition of organizations. Because I think the more focused and honed in you are on your requests, the likely there's a potential to receive some funding. I've not been in conversation with Laura, so who knows what type of plan they have. But I do not believe it's too late to have this type of conversation.
Right.
Violet, again, Shirley, I think the September committee meeting is where all these questions can be asked of Laura. I don't believe, the monies can go to individual community groups. But
I think, Counselor, there is an opportunity though to influence how those dollars potentially could be spent. And I know there was always a conversation, well, which section of the city, what type of projects we should be working on. And I've never heard from them directly on how those dollars were going to be spent. So I look forward to your September meeting.
So I will invite you there. Definitely.
Okay. So if we do get that information from you, Mr. McGee, or from Mr. Turner as to what the criteria is, we can review it and see if there's any opportunity for us. Okay, it's okay. Someone says they have a quick question. Go ahead, Mr. Arrow.
Just for Brendan. Brendan, when it comes to Bulls Park and the development of Bulls Park, there were the residents that were there before that left, when they were doing Bowles Park and same thing Westbrook Village. Were they given first priority in terms of the housing that was developed? How did that work? Because that's very concerning to me.
Let me take that question, Brandon. The city.
Anytime somebody else can take it, that's good. As long as it's a good response, though.
Well, the reason I know this, the city about a week ago approved some tax credit for those organizations, and yes, the people who are living in the area before are given the first opportunity to come back to live in the community.
So with Bowles Park, for example, I mean, the number of houses there, is there any numbers as to percentages of people that were original residents that was relocated? How many of them moved back there?
No, I don't know what the numbers are moving back into Bowles Park. I do know on the Westbrook Village, the first couple of buildings are going to be ready in another month or so. There's about 65 units, and they had over 800 people apply for the 65 units. Wow. But I can get back to Annette Sanders, who is the director of the Housing Authority, and ask that question of how many residents from prior who were living there that has returned.
Okay. My understanding is that when they were relocated, many of them got Section 8, and if they moved back, they would lose the Section 8. So they chose not to move back, but to keep the Section 8 and live wherever they were. Is that correct?
I don't think that's correct.
No, okay. I don't think that's correct. No.
They have first priority to move back, and they have
yes.
That's like any other property that they move, but they do have the rights to move back.
Yep. Yes. But I thought that when they were relocated, they got Section 8.
Yeah, they did get Section 8, but if they go back to the building, because the building doesn't have Section 8, if it's just a regular unit, it's like a regular landlord. They don't lose their Section 8 voucher.
So if they moved back, they would have lost their Section 8. So, okay.
I agree with the commissioner. Basically, again, it's a subsidized unit, and it goes by income. So again, even if they had Section 8 and it moved out, they still had to put some monies towards their rental payment. They were given the first opportunity, and I've never heard that the ones that have moved out and was given an opportunity to return didn't want to. When I toured the property myself, I kind of wanted to volunteer. I was over income, unfortunately, because they're gorgeous, really beautiful buildings. They did a great job in remodeling.
Okay.
Well, I think, though, just to speak to Violet's her point, I could remember the New Stowe Village and even Nelton Court. There were families who were provided with the vouchers to move, and then families who were interested in coming back did not have that opportunity. I don't know what took place in the in-between, but I know that there were a large number of residents who did not get first opportunity or a chance to move back in the neighborhood that they wanted to. So something, I don't know what happened. I don't know if the criteria was sort of, I don't know. It wasn't a good thing. So Commissioner, I don't know if you've heard of that in other places, but I do know that there were several developments in Hartford, and those residents could not return.
Yeah, and someone who lived in Bowles Park told me that.
And for every development that I have been involved with the Housing Authority, they do have preferences, even when a private developer acquires the property. And for this one specifically, because I know we manage the project, the previous residents do have preference.
Yes.
To go back.
I agree. And the person who told me was someone who had lived there, got relocated, and was given preference to come back. But when he did the cost-benefit analysis, he felt that financially it was not worth it for him to come back. So he chose to stay where he was, and whatever benefit he was getting for when he had to move, that was better for him than to return.
Okay.
No, okay, so that is their choice.
Yeah, that's their choice.
Yeah, it was his choice, and I think it had to do with money, though.
Sure. Are those properties city-owned properties or private? I mean, Westbrook
I'm
Village.
sorry?
Are they city-owned property or they're private owned?
No, they're not city-owned properties, no.
Okay.
Both Bose Park and Westbrook Village Housing Authority property, they
Hartford.
Mhm.
several, I think in the 80s or 70s or 80s, the city of Connecticut had given the housing authorities monies to buy and maintain these properties. Over the years, you would say middle class people who were living there. Over the years, as it went along, it wasn't like a federal HUD housing programs where when you have, and Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, but the federal HUD housing programs, you have maintenance monies are given to maintain the property. Bose Park and Bose Park and Westbrook Village were not federal HUD properties. So basically, the rental income also used towards maintenance. And as the different economic sector people moved out, you had a lower income people moving in, and the cost of maintaining and the rental was not there. So over the last 20, 30 years, those properties deteriorated because of not having the maintenance cost of maintaining those properties. So they are not HUD properties. Again, these are housing buildings that were given, the monies were given from the state to the housing authority to buy these properties and build them in the settlement.
Shirley, I think that they actually were federal public housing.
When I talked to Mrs. Sanders from last week when we did the presentation for the credit, they weren't HUD funded. That's what I thought. I understand. But you've got more experience than I do, so you can tell me.
You know, they were federal public housing, and they did a deal with the for-profit developers to get a finance in the tax credits. And the state is now providing some resources. And because it was federal public housing, that's the reason why the residents received Section 8 vouchers. And they were moved out, and some of the units do have Section 8 vouchers too.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Ms. Seila, do you only do housing, or do you do commercial?
Housing.
Your department, only housing?
The department is housing.
Okay, does it matter if it's however many units?
That's the matter. We do rental housing, homeownership. We are going to be doing some neighborhood revitalization, and we're also working with the towns, providing them with technical assistance for developing housing in the suburbs.
Okay. I am going to wrap up. I really appreciate the two of you staying longer. I think we could have a much longer discussion, and we're going to be sure to invite you back probably in the fall when we talked about September 2nd date and some other dates. So when we get past some of those dates, bring you back for you to give us an update on the state of affairs in the city and the state. So I really appreciate both of you staying on for an extended period of time. I thank Shirley Sargent for her input, and Mr. Turner, you've been a resource. I haven't seen your face, but you've been a resource to us.
I
and
would
we
love to
expect
see Shirley's face at this hour.
No. I was outside doing yard work, okay? And I ran in. Oh my God, it's 8 o'clock. My phone is going off. You don't want to see me like this.
So I thank everyone for staying on the call. This has been great information, and we hope to speak to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Bye.
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 Representative McGee.